In this mini project, we will make some sort of either recipe or how-to list. I'm going to do cauliflower soup, but you could absolutely do something completely different, like how to get started in a particular video game, or how to improve a particular skill, or how to make a milkshake, or a shelf. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. So have a think about it now. Choose a topic. You can always change as you go, but it's good to have something to start with. You can choose different colors as we're going along, different fonts, different content, all of that. Just I will show you how to write the code for it. So let's get started. Can you go to Google and type in JS, just the letters J and S, Fiddle, Fiddle, and it should come up with the result, JSFiddle Code Playground, and if you click on that. So let me just explain what JSFiddle is. It's basically a very, very useful website that you can type your web development code here and the result will appear here. So for example, at a very, very simple level, I can just type hello and hit run and the result will appear over here. It's not very interesting, obviously, at the moment, but we can improve that. So the first thing I'd like you to do at JSFiddle is to create yourself an account. So if you click sign in here, and then you can click on sign up. Okay, so hopefully you've paused and done that. The next thing I'd like you to do is to click on the settings over here and click on tabs, columns. So basically, again, I'll just type the hello and I'll explain here. Basically, there are multiple different languages that you will be typing code in. The main ones are HTML and CSS, and in fact, I'm just going to drag CSS over there because we're not using JavaScript for this particular mini project. So HTML is like the content of your page, the text, the images, those sorts of things, and CSS is the style, basically making it look good. So we can flick back and forth between those two and we can see the result over here. So just again, you go to settings, click on tabs, columns, and then click away. Now I just want to explain quickly how the saving system works in JSFiddle. So every time I make a change or even just hit save, you'll probably notice that the number on the end here, it might be hard to see, but it goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, etc. This is because JSFiddle uses something called version control, which means that every single time you save it, all your previous copies are saved as well. So if you decide that, oh no, I completely messed up what I'm doing, I want to go back to version 1 instead of version 2, I can just put that in the bar here and it will go back to the previous version. Also, if you click over here on the blue icon and go to your fiddles, you'll see that it will save, it's only got one obviously, but it will save all of your projects here, and if you click on there it will go to the latest version. So for me it's version 2 up there. So let's go over some basics for your site. I would recommend that whatever the heading is, you have it in an H1 tag like this, and then the subheadings could be H2 or H3, and so this heading is actually going to be sort of like the name of the page, and this subheading, the H2, is going to be the name of the recipe or the how-to that we're doing. So you can have a bit of fun coming up with a fun name for your site and also list what you're doing in this particular instance. Also in paragraph tags here, we have put a little bit of just an introduction so that people know what to expect and what's coming next. So go and do that for your site, and one little interesting thing you might notice here is this HR tag, and that simply breaks up the sections here by putting a line along like this. Now on the finished version we can style that to look very, very different and look in any way that you like, but for the moment it'll just be a basic line across like that. So go and write that part for your site. That's the basics. Pause it and come back when you're done. Okay, so the next thing I suggest that you do is have an image below here of the thing that your site is showing you how to do. So it might be a screenshot if it's showing you how to play a video game, or in my case, it's going to be a picture of a cauliflower and maybe some cauliflower soup. So if I open up if I search for cauliflower soup and go to images, I can find something that I think looks nice. Now, I just quickly like to talk about copyright and using images that you're allowed to use. As you keep progressing and making your own websites, we need to start to think about how can we get copyright-free images. Now, one way that we can do it is to click on Tools here and go to Usage Rights and choose Creative Commons licenses. If something is Creative Commons, it means it can be used by anybody. So if I click on Creative Commons licenses, there are a lot of images here that I know that I can use without having to get permission or write where it's from, etc., etc. Another thing you can do is if you go to this website called Pixabay and also another one called Unsplash, and if you search on these SOP, oh my goodness, cauliflower soup. Okay. If you search on Pixabay or Unsplash, these are all actually copyright-free images that you can use. They've got this first row up here, which is sponsorship, but then anything from here downwards you can use. I'm just going to right-click on whatever image that I want and say copy image address, and go back to JSFiddle, and we're going to put in an image tag with the source src equaling that, and save. Oh, there we go. You should by now have the top section of your website that has the title, what we're talking about, how to do, a brief written description, and a picture. So the second part is to have two lists. One is a list of ingredients or materials if you're building something, for example, or things you need, however you want to phrase it. And the other one is the method or what to do, or the procedure, etc., etc. You'll also notice we have an interesting border around the edge, but let's just start off with getting these lists and showing you how to do that. So first of all, we need a heading for the next section, which I'm going to call mine ingredients, and I want it to be a smaller heading than this one, less important heading than the title of the whole thing. So I'm going to use an H3 tag, and I will call this one ingredients. And you can see that's appearing there. And while I'm at it, I might do another one, another H3 one, which is method. Okay, so we need to now make two lists. One list for the ingredients is an unordered list. It's just got dot points. And the method will be an ordered list, will have numbers. So for an unordered list, the tag is U for unordered and L for list. And that will be the whole list. And then inside the list, we're going to need tags for individual list items. So the first ingredient that I need is one cauliflower head. And so that would look like this. And I'm just going to tab it in once so that it looks nice. Or I can hit tidy and everything gets tidied up for us. So you can see here that we have the first item of the list and a dot point is created. So I would like you now to go and add more of these list elements, like this, for example. This is all of mine. And you can see that we have all of these things here. Okay, so One thing I just want to very briefly explain here, you might wonder why there is this and amp and semicolon. Don't worry too much about this right now, but the basic idea is that the use of this and symbol, which is called an ampersand, is actually means something else in HTML. So if you want to actually display an ampersand, you can't just display it like that. It will have a red thing, and everything will go crazy at you. If you want to do it correctly, you should do this. So if you have an and in your list, make sure you do and amp and semicolon. So go and do the list of the ingredients, or at least a few of them, or the materials that you need, and come back when you're ready for the next list. Okay, so for the method, we are going to need what we call an ordered list. So we will say ol/ol, and I will paste in mine so you can see here. I'll hit tidy, make it a bit tidier. I'll give us some more space here so we can see. So you can see you have, oops, I put an ordered list in an ordered list. We don't need that. Okay, so inside the ordered list, we also need list items, but they will behave differently because they are in an ordered list. So these ones now, which is the steps, will show up with numbers on the side as well. So go and do those things, set up your ingredients and your method, or your materials, or what you need, or whatever you want to call them. Okay, it's time to start adding some styles to make this website look better. Now, this website doesn't look atrocious, but I certainly think that we can add a little bit of style to it. The goal for mine is to look something like this, with some nice fonts, some different colors, some interesting borders around the different sections, and have everything centered in the middle of the page here. Yours, you should try and pick styles that suit your particular topic as much as you can. So let's have a look. For me, the first thing I'm going to do is pick a background color, and I think I'm going to choose a very, very light sort of, maybe we might call this a cream or an off-white, something along these lines. So I can copy here, and we can make some changes to the body. Remember, the body will affect the whole of the web page. So background color, C-O-L-O-R, American spelling. I'll hit save with that. Now it might not seem like that really changed very much, but a perfectly white background on a website often doesn't look as good as one that's just got a tiny bit of color, and the tiny bit of color that we're using sort of picks out the color of the cauliflower here a little bit. So you might choose to do quite a dark color, and then you could here with the color, which will be the font color or the text color, you could say white, for example. I'm just going to say black, even though it's defaulting to black. I'm just writing that to make it obvious what's happening. Next thing is I want this website to only take up the middle of the screen and be in the middle. So I'm going to say that the max width equals 700 pixels. And if we run that, you'll remember that that results in the body being on the left-hand side. But if we say margin auto, that will keep everything in the middle when we make it wider or smaller. Okay, so that's a good start. Now, next of all, I would like the color of the L-Man Cooking Adventures to be a different color. So we can change what the H1, the heading number ones, or the biggest headings, we can change the color. And I've just gone and picked one again that sort of, oops, picked one that sort of matches, pulls out the color of the cauliflower here. Now, what about fonts? If we go to Google Fonts as usual and select this one and go see available fonts, again you can have a look through and choose maybe, I would suggest 2 fonts. I would choose, or 3. I mean, me personally, I think I'm actually going to have 1 font for the L-Man Cooking Adventures, 1 font for the headings here, and then just a nice simple to read font for the main text. The main text, you should usually have a simple font. Really interesting, elaborate fonts only really look good when it's on big text. So, for example, the heading that we have at the top here. So the one that I have, I'm pretty sure one of them is Gulzar, so I'm going to search for Gulzar, but you can choose a different one. The example text in here is in Arabic for some reason, I'm not sure why. But anyway, if we go into the code itself, you can type whatever you like, so you can type cauliflower recipe, and you can see, yes, that looks like what I want. So I'm going to delete any fonts that I had previously, and I'm going to add Gulzar, and the other ones that I had were Nunito, and Nunito is interesting because it's one of the first times when we have all sorts of different thicknesses. So 200 is thinner than 300, which is light. 400 is regular. I'm just going to go with regular. Regular. Yeah, I'll select that. So I've got Gulzar, Nunito, and the final one for me is Tangerine, I think. But you should go and, like I said, find your own fonts. Yep, so this is the one I used for the heading. So I will add that. Bold. I think because it's for the heading, I'm going to choose the bold version. Okay. So now that I have all 3 here, I come down and I don't need the style tags, but I copy this, Control-C, go into the CSS file and put this up the top. So this will import when the page loads those 3 fonts, and that means that we can actually use them as we go along. Alright, so we've got Tangerine is the one that I think we'll use for the H1 for the heading. So we put that there, and don't forget you'll need to put a comma and write whether you want cursive, monospace, sans serif, or serif if it can't load that font, because they're sort of just simple fonts that any web browser can show. Okay, so let's save that, and as you can see now we have the heading coming up, but that is much too small. So I'm going to say font size is 70 pixels, and we will save it. That's good. I'm going to show you just something you might find interesting for headings. I would actually like the space between the letters to be a little bit more. So I'm going to say letter spacing, and default is 0. So if you put 2 pixels, it adds another 2 pixels between each letter. And it just stretches it out for headings that can look good sometimes. Anything else before we move on to the others? I feel like on this one, I feel like there's too much margin above and below the heading, and I think that the margin is probably something like 30 pixels at the moment. So I'm just going to set it to 10 pixels above and below, and so we've got a little bit less space, or maybe 15. 15 might be good, like this. And that's actually pushed it in a little bit too, which I like, because it's on top, bottom, left and right. Okay, all right, so just quickly, we can say for H2, we are going to use, choose the font that we like. So we go into here, and I think it was Gulza for me. So I will put that there. There we go. And for the actual, for the text of everything, I'm going to say, unless we've specified a different font, I'm just going to say Nunito and full back to sans serif. Okay, there we go. So just a reminder, basically if you put in the body that the font should be Nunito, that'll apply to everything except where you've specifically said no, for headings or for this heading do this, etc., etc. Why don't we put some style for the unordered lists? But this border actually I would like to be for both the unordered and the ordered lists, so I can just put comma OL. So I can say for any of the unordered lists and also for the ordered lists, do these styles. So I'll show you, we can just put a border and we can say, for example, 3 pixels solid black. So this is the width, the type, and the color. And if I save that, you can see that we have a border around there. But basically, I want mine to look a little bit different than that. First of all, I want it to be sort of a little bit transparent. And if you'll remember that, what we can do is we can replace this black with an RGBA color. RGBA means red, green, blue, and alpha. Alpha is how solid it is or how opaque it is out of 1. So if we say 0, 0, 0, that's black, and then 0.3, for example, means that it's only going to be 30%, and your background, whatever it is, will show through 70%, if that makes sense. So already to me that looks a little bit better, because it's not drawing your attention to it. Your attention should be drawn to the text. But what we can do is, instead of saying just border, we could say, well, we only want that on the left, for example. So we could say border left, and then you'll only have the border on the left. So this style is actually used quite a lot on websites, you might see. My border left, instead of solid, I'm going to make it dashed, and then and then I'm going to make a border, I'm going to make a border bottom, border bottom, and I'm going to make this one solid. Okay, what is it? Expected a space after comma. Okay. We need spaces after the commas, apparently. So let's have a look at that. Now you don't have to do your borders this way, but I just wanted to show you that you can if you choose, and so we can create some different interesting styles with our borders. Now the final thing for borders I'm going to talk about is this particular line up here. So this, if you remember, is the HR. So we can style the HR, and right now it has a border that we are going to get rid of and then do our own borders to make ours look a little bit different. So I'm going to say border none, and you'll see that it actually disappears. The element is still there, it just doesn't have a border around it. So the element is just this long invisible line. But I'm going to say border top, and we are going to set that to 3 pixels wide, solid, and we'll do the RGBA thing again. So 000 is black, or you can use color picker. Oops. And 0.3 for the alpha. And you can see that that now matches the ones that we have here. So we've got some sort of design consistency as we go down our page and up our page. So it's time to put some finishing touches on our recipe here. Yours might not be a recipe, obviously. And again, as I'm putting these finishing touches on, you have a play around with it and see if you can make it look good for your particular topic. Okay, so when I'm looking here, there are a couple of things that sort of stand out to me that could be improved. So the main issues that I have with mine are just around spacing issues. So I feel like this should actually be a tiny bit over to the left, and I want there to be a bit of a gap after each one of these sentences. I won't really need that here, but just tinkering around with the spacing. So the main thing to understand is that in the HTML, every single one of these tags, like a list item or an unordered list, all of these have basically different spacing around them. So you have the content itself, and then you have what's called padding, then you have where the border is, and then you have margin, which is outside the border. And these are usually set to not necessarily to 0. The web browser, if you don't say what they are, the web browser might decide that, oh, we'll make the margin 10 pixels or something because that generally looks good. But if the default is not what you like, then you can play around with it. So, and also you can also say padding. If you said padding is 5, it would be 5 pixels every side, but you could also say padding top or padding left, etc. All those sorts of things. So let's go and have a look at some of the code that we might change in the CSS for our ordered lists and our unordered lists. A fun way of playing around with this is to just make changes and see what happens. So if I might make this a little bit smaller. If I was to play around with the padding of the lists, now this padding is of the whole list, so it'll be around the outside. But if I said padding is 0 for both the lists and hit save, then you'll see that there was actually some padding that was set automatically. But now I can control it exactly as I want. I could say the top and bottom and then the left and right. So I could do something ridiculous like 50 pixels top and bottom and 100 pixels left and right. So 50 pixels top and bottom, 100 pixels left and right. Obviously that's not exactly what I want, so I might go with something like 15 pixels and maybe 30. Let's try that. Okay, that's more looking the way that I want it. Now the next thing is I want the actual list items, the LI, to have some padding as well. So I'm going to say padding bottom and do, let's say, 20 pixels. And you can see that's put a nice amount of space underneath each one, like that. Probably too much, so I'll probably just go with 10 pixels. Now I might decide that I don't want that for the ingredients, I only want that for the method. And in that case, what I can say is I can say ordered list elements. Now I'm not putting a comma here because a comma would mean this will apply to the ordered list and list elements, which is not what I want. What I mean with this one is if there's a list element that's in an ordered list, and if I save that, you'll notice here that there's space on the ordered list, but not on the ingredients list over there, which is the unordered list. Now another issue that I have with mine is I don't like this space here, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to work out what that space actually is. Is it caused by a space above the paragraph or below the heading, etc.? So let's have a bit of a play around with that. Let's do a paragraph and let's just set the margin to 0 and see what happens. And as you can see, there was some margin under the paragraph, but that's not what we wanted. So we'll get rid of that. If you want to investigate not the paragraph, but the H2 heading here, we could see if we set the margin of that to 0, what happens. Okay, that's interesting. There's one more thing that we can investigate, which is line height. And if we set that to something like 10 pixels, something very, very small, you'll see that it's actually, it was the line height which got set to something. So let's try 20 pixels. Maybe 24. Okay, I might want just a little bit of padding above, so I could say padding top equals 10 pixels. Save. Okay, maybe 20 pixels. But now we've gotten rid of that massive space there, which looked kind of really weird. So sometimes you have to play around with different elements to get the spacing right. So there we have it. Go and make yours look amazing. Don't forget up here you can save when you're done and hit set as base. You can also type in show to see your website full page. Thank you very much.